Hey everybody, it's me, Scott. It's Behind the Bits, and you are my BTB buddies as always, and I'm glad you're here. I got to tell you, this is going to be a special one. This is one that I think is going to be one for the history books because I'm stoked about it. Before we get started, I want to let you know that for some reason, HelloFresh is still keeping me on as one of their podcasts of choice to be their sponsor. So apparently, you guys are buying some HelloFresh stuff, and that's great. So I would love, absolutely love for you to go to HelloFresh.com/BTB16 and check it out. Just check it out and see if HelloFresh is something you'd like. Lisa and I like it because we don't have to go to the store and overbuy for two people. And it's all there. You chop it up, you put it in the oven, and you're done. So we absolutely love it. There is food for everybody. If you're a meat lover, you got the meat. We're vegetarian types, so you can get the vegetarian stuff, and it is great because you can still cook. You got all the stuff and no waste, and we're actually saving money on our grocery bill because of it. So it's HelloFresh/BTB16. And if you want to try it out, put the code BTB16 in, and guess what? You can get up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. What can be better than that? Nothing. So I appreciate you guys doing it because HelloFresh apparently likes me. So thanks for doing it. BTB16, get you 16 free meals. So let's get into this. Barry Katz is an Emmy and Grammy nominated TV, film, and record producer, talent manager, and Sykes and Jim Gaffigan. Barry produced such shows and specials as HBO's Tourgasm and 7 seasons of Last Comic Standing. He was a trailblazer in using social media to help comedians accelerate their career. Barry is the host of the critically acclaimed podcast Industry Standard, where he talks to entertainers about the risky decisions they made that took them to the next level in their careers. In addition to the podcast, Barry is offering comedians a leg up in the business with his Blueprint for Success series that gives wisdom from Barry, play-by-play breakdowns of comedy performances, Zoom sessions, and a master course on how to kickstart your comedy career. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of the practical knowledge you get from Blueprint for Success. Here is the legendary Barry Katz. Ta-da! And it's Barry. How you doing, Barry?
I can't believe I'm more legendary than HelloFresh.
Yeah, you're just a couple notches above, and I'm really stoked to have you on the show. You are somebody that I really thought that I'd like to have on the show because I've listened to quite a few episodes of Industry Standard, and I was actually kind of shy about asking you to be on the show. And I finally decided, you know what? What's the worst I'm going to get? I'm going to get no, like I got from Paula Poundstone, and I'll just go on with my life. And lo and behold, you said yes. So I really appreciate that.
Well, no problem. I'm just wondering, who's BTB 1 through 15 on HelloFresh? That's all I want to know what 16 has. Forget it. Let's forget about that. And Paula Poundstone, listen, keep trying. Listen, she said yes to me in person, but it still hasn't happened yet. And she was one of the first headliners. She was the first headliner I ever booked in my entire life, and was always so kind and wonderful and generous.
Yeah.
And so I owe her a debt of gratitude because she got me sort of indirectly into the more high established artist realm.
And a wonderful person. If you have not seen her live, you do not know who Paula Poundstone is as a performer. She's a force of nature when she's on stage. And I got to see her a few years ago, and it was magical the way that she could remember all the crowd work she did from the beginning of the show and turn it around to callbacks at the end of the show. It was masterful.
Yeah, one of the things about Paula that's fascinating, and I think that I think it's important for your audience to hear this perspective, because everything has happened, everything works, but Paula was this, and still is, this unique artist who can do like hours of material, just planting her feet and slinging the jokes and the stories with her cadence and intuition and her voice, which you could, if you're playing Name That Voice, you can name it in 1 second. But then she has the capability of doing crowd work as well, and not just the kind of crowd work that you see MCs do at comedy clubs like Ha-Ha's Chuckle Hut in wherever it is. She's doing original material that's not even in a Rolodex, it seems, in her brain. It's just spontaneous. And she's one of the few artists who gets respect from doing crowd work, if the only one. A lot of times somebody came up to me the other day, who shall remain nameless, a very somebody who's really doing well, and they said, Barry, I found it on my social media. I do crowd work and I put that up, and that's the stuff that gets the most views. And I said to them, I said, well, that's great, but when's the last time you heard somebody say, hey, I went to see Chappelle in concert at the Hollywood Bowl. It was unbelievable. Well, what moved you the most? Yeah, it was this moment where he saw a guy in the front row and he said, where are you from? And the guy said, I'm from here. And he said, oh, okay, what do you do for a living? I'm an accountant. Oh, fantastic. And they tell you the exchange that he had with an audience member. No, they tell you the exchanges that he has in his mind that he shares with you that blow you away, not what the crowd work is. So I don't get me wrong, no one laughs harder at crowd work than me, but if you think the crowd work is going to get you to any point in this business quicker than your mind and your pen, I think you're sadly mistaken.
That's a good note, and you are 100% correct. Nobody does it like Paula, and nobody has as quick of a wit based on what she hears back from the crowd as her. I mean, it's amazing that the synapses in your brain can work that quickly to just flow with it like that. It's like I said, masterful.
Absolutely. I'm so honored to be on this podcast with planes flying over this town here. It's incredible. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of planes here. I live at Azuma Beach, and they're always flying these planes with these advertisements, and I'm so sorry.
There it is. Hey, I tell you what, we live close to an arsenal, Redstone Arsenal, so sometimes they're testing ordinances over there, so we may get some of that thrown in for fun.
No problem. But it's really great to be here. I'm glad you asked me. I love talking about the business, and if I can do it at a lunchtime or late at night or whatever it is, I always want to do it, because I think that I realized throughout my life that's the thing that's always made me feel the best is sharing my thoughts and my opinions on what I think about certain things. And look, there's probably a zillion comics who might, hear an opinion that I say, and they would say, F Barry Katz. He doesn't know what he's talking about, and somebody might, but when you're in my side of the business, you only get paid for one thing, and that's your opinion. And and I've been fortunate enough. I was thinking the other day, I was literally, it was like 3:00 in the morning. I'm in the fetal position on the couch, and I'm thinking to myself, like, it's unbelievable all the things that I've been fortunate enough and so humbled to be involved with. I mean, there isn't any kind of thing in this crazy, messed up business that I haven't been a part of. If it's like a performance at Madison Square Garden, I've been there. If it's an HBO or Netflix or whatever special, I've done a million of them. If it's a film that somebody writes and gets made, I've been there. I've been able to be in Vegas. I just am doing some work with Cirque du Soleil, and we're launching the first Cirque du Soleil show since the pandemic at New York, New York. It's going to be called Mad Apple. It's One Extraordinary Night in New York, and we just worked together to cast Brad Williams, a really phenomenal comedian, as the lead. Cirque du Soleil has never had a stand-up comedian on a show as a lead or anything. And so I get to work on, I get to work with an artist who's never, ever booked an acting job before, and working with them. And then in their first audition, they book a series. Or I've just, every incarnation you can think of, being backstage at the old Letterman show or the Tonight Show or whatever, with somebody doing their first time, or being in Montreal and seeing somebody get a deal there after having nothing. Mm-hmm. It's just, I think about it, it's really humbling, because I don't know how your audience feels when you set out, but very few people set out with, and they have like the lined index cards all over their house of what they're going to do in their career. Mm-hmm. And I was certainly one of those people who never had anything. I know this is horrible to say, because I wouldn't tell anybody to be this way, but I never ever thought about, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, or I'm going to sit in a room with a guy who presses a button on his computer and sells out 2 shows at Boston Garden with no ads, no nothing. You never know where the world takes you, and fate is a very strange thing. Granted, obviously I wanted to be successful at what I did, and I wanted to do a great job, and I wanted to move the needle, but I really didn't set those kind of goals. All I thought to myself was, if you just work harder and smarter than everybody else, and you do things a little bit differently, you take some risks, do things a little differently, you're a little bit of a maverick, your chances are you're going to get noticed, and things are going to happen. And as that happens, look, there's nothing like working with somebody on their audition for Saturday Night Live. And in Daryl Hammond's case, as he reminded me, because I didn't even remember, I actually wrote his test for Saturday Night Live. I'm not a writer. I've never published anything in my life. I've never written a script. But I worked with him. I saw the talent he had, and he shared with me that he could do an impression of Ted Koppel, which was not in his act. And I thought to myself, why don't we do a Nightline with Ted Koppel, and all your characters come in and out? And not only does he get Saturday Night Live, but when I go there for that premiere episode of that season, he's a new cast member, and the commercial comes off and the cold open comes up, and it's Daryl Hammond as Ted Koppel. Mm-hmm. Those are things that you can't, and just to share something else with the audience, I never thought to myself, well, I'm doing this and for the money, and it's going to make this amount of money, and I'm doing this and it's going to make this amount of money. Because in the beginning, as a manager, you can't think that way. You can't. Look, I remember I had 4 clients on Saturday Night Live. The average salary for a season on Saturday Night Live back then for a beginning cast member was about $100,000 a year. Mm. You're on the greatest show in the world, and it's about $100,000 a year. So do the math. As a manager, 10% was like $40,000 for the year. Mm. My office in New York City was $40,000 a year rent. Yeah. So it's like, what? So you're involved. Your talent and theirs are involved, from Jay Moore to Jim Brewer to Daryl Hammond, Tracy Morgan. Dane Cook hosted the show twice, and I've also represented, Sherry O'Terry and Dean Edwards. But your talent and their talent goes into it, and it's the greatest thing that's ever happened in their career to that point. And you're making $10,000. Or let's say one of you listening, has a manager, and it's like, you're like, I want to do the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and your manager and you work on the set, you're submitting to the bookers over and over again, you're back and forth. Finally, you get the call, hey, you got it. You got the Tonight Show. You're doing it on April 15th. Well, if you're doing it for the money, then you're in deep shit, because the comedian is probably making about $596.30. And the manager, if he even asks for the commission, which why would he? If he wants to go get HelloFresh, maybe it's like $59. So it's like, you don't look at it for the money. Respect outlasts cash. You're going to do well if you do great work over and over again. Your legend will grow, and the money will come. And even times when, for myself, when it's like anything else. Every business, when you're, I'll say the politically correct way to say it, you can either work for the person or be the person. And so the thing is, I never wanted to be the guy who worked for the person, worked for the corporation. That really, I wanted to be my own boss. And so when you're your own boss, you start January 1st, just like a lot of the comedians listening and people who want to write or want to do something in the entertainment business. You're starting January 1st, and unless you're the best psychic in the world, you have no idea what you're going to make that year. No idea what's going to happen. But if you work for HelloFresh at the company plant, you know exactly what you're going to make.
Yeah.
You're planning out the whole year. Okay, I'm going to make this amount of money. Okay, rent is this. Okay, our food is this. We get HelloFresh for 20% discount because we work there. Let's see what else we got here. We got our entertainment, our car insurance, our health insurance. Okay, what's left? Okay, this is what's left. And you plan your life.
Yeah.
When you're an entrepreneur or a young comedian or whatever you're starting, or whatever writer, you have no idea what's going to happen. Fate is an amazingly strange thing. It can lead you to things that will blow you away. It's just, it's, I don't want to rant too long, but I think this is important. Look, I was in Boston. I thought I was killing it. I had like 50 one-nighters all over New England. I had my own thing. I had 3 comedy clubs I was booking there. I was like, really, it came from nowhere to do that stuff. And it was all cash businesses back then, where you go to the club and people are just paying in cash, and comedy boom. And I got married, and my wife passed away after 8 months, 23 years old.
Wow.
And I'm just thinking to myself, like, what am I going to do? Like, what's going to happen? Like, how am I going to go on? Like, I realized the tragedy happened, and she's no longer here anymore. And that's horrifying. But I'm also, in a way, it's horrifying because I'm left, and I thought my life was going this way, and it's not. And so, and it's like that negative positive thing where you run into comedians and they want to be nice to you. You'd run into them, hey Barry, how you doing? Are you okay? Is everything okay? And everywhere you go, somebody says, are you okay? Is everything okay? Can I do anything for you? And it's like the positive negative. And when that happened, like a month later of just being in bed, like not wondering what I was going to do and not caring about anything, I got in my car and I drove to New York City, got off at the 79th Street Boat Basin exit, and just went as far as I could. And there was a bar. I went to the bar. There was a payphone with one of those old yellow pages.
Mm-hmm.
I opened it up to real estate agents. I put a quarter in. I started calling and leave the number on the payphone. One guy calls back. The first apartment I look at 82nd Street and Central Park West, it was $935 a month, first, last, and security. I gave him the $2,700 in cash, and I'm in New York City. And I don't know why I'm there. I don't know what I'm going to be doing. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I don't give a shit.
Uh-huh.
And then miraculously, I get a call from Eddie Brill, who used to be the booker for Letterman, and it's a comic.
Former guest.
Yeah.
I just interviewed him a couple months ago.
He says, I have a comedy club that I was running in Greenwich Village, and I'm going to LA. Why don't you go down there and talk to the guy? I said, okay. I go down there and talk to the guy. I'm writing on like a cocktail napkin, like what my idea is for the room, which is the Boston Comedy Club in New York City, the absolute singular worst idea in history. But I go there, I pitch it to them. I say, you can have the bar and the food, just give me the door and I'll make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And they said yes. And I just started renovating the place and putting it together. And I opened up in June of 1988. And my first comedian on stage was my first client ever, Louis C.K.
Wow.
And he was helping me run the wires and the lights. 18 years old. 18 years old. He's come down to New York City and is doing that.
Wow.
So, and then there I got to meet all these young, great comics who couldn't work anywhere, weren't getting great spots at the clubs, like Chappelle and Jay Moore and Jeff Ross and Jim Brewer. And I would give them stage time because I believed in them. And then I started representing them. And then it just started happening. And again, because of something fateful that happened. And I'm here to tell your audience that I know it sounds strange and you can't quantify it anywhere in any court of law, but you know, fate just has a way of taking you, and the world has a plan. I'm not saying that you can just sit on your ass and eat donuts all day and the world's going to have a plan. But if you're willing to get out there and push yourself and take risks, you're going to be in a great position. I was saying the other day on, I have these Zoom calls on this Blueprint for Success thing I do. And I was saying how the lens is for artists sometimes. And it could be exactly the same, but you can see how it changes for different scenarios. Like, for instance, if I were to say to anyone listening as a comic, listen, I want you to submit to the Jimmy Kimmel show. They're taking one comedian this year, one comedian, and he's taking 10,000 submissions. Why don't you send yours in? And most comedians are like, come on, man, 10,000. I mean, come on. I'm never, even if it was 1,000, you know, most comedians would be like, come on, well, maybe I'll wait for when they, you know, they open it up a little bit more or whatever. I'm not gonna, I might be number 2 or number 5, but I'm not gonna. But if I told that comedian, look, we're going on a great, beautiful cruise, all expenses paid, with 10,000, or let's just say 1,000 people, and we're going out to this beautiful bay and all expenses paid, and we're all going to go swimming in this beautiful bay, but one of us is going to get killed by a shark. how many people listening are going to go on that cruise?
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah.
No one. Well, why aren't you going on the cruise? Because I could get killed by the shark. There's a 1 in 1,000 shot I could get killed by a shark. Why aren't you submitting to Kimmel? Come on, I'll never get the show.
Yeah. So in talking with you before we came on, you're pretty humble, but the one thing that you have to give yourself is you have an eye for talent, and you have a very wide variety of different comedians that you've helped take places. What is it about the comedians that you see something in? What is different from them versus another comedian that maybe cracks you up, does, like we talked before, great crowd work and stuff like that? What is that difference, that key difference that makes them special?
First of all, I want to apologize, Scott, that I never saw it happening for you. So I'm sorry. I missed the boat on you.
Damn it. I could have been great on SNL.
I'll share with your audience that in terms of comedians or comedy artists, just because of what I means something to me, that doesn't mean that if I'm not seeing something proper, like for instance, I always loved Patton Oswalt. But, if Patton were sitting with me right now, I'd say, listen, but Patton, I love you and I love how you are. Your mind is, I think, too smart for me. There's too many connections and things that are going, but I'm riveted to you, but I just don't, I can't grasp it. And if I'm not invested in it, I can't invest in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I always loved him, but was never somebody, if he was, let's say, an artist who was available when he was younger and I were to go to him or he were to come to me, I don't think it would work. I've also not been good with, like, the angrier kind of artists, the fabricated anger or the just like anger, but I respect, like Lewis Black is an incredible artist.
Mm-hmm.
And amazing. But for some reason, the way I'm wired comedically, I'm not invested in angry comedy as much as other people are. But I love Lewis Black. I'm just saying in terms of so I've always looked for people who I thought had something that not only was as unique and interesting and original as Patton Oswalt or Lewis Black, but was more accessible to the masses and more huggable and lovable to the masses.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though I represented, somebody might say, well, you represented Jay Moore. But Jay Moore was as he would say, his persona for most of his career was a lovable asshole.
Yeah.
And so it was like a huggable, lovable, snarky kind of asshole. But when I looked at him was I saw somebody who could host, who could do radio, who could write books, who could act dramatically, act comedically, do a whole bunch of different things that do voiceovers, do all kinds of things, and was like every cylinder in their engine could be used, even if they didn't believe it in the beginning. Those are the artists that I think I always rallied around more in the beginning. So when I started working with Chappelle, I didn't just see him as a great stand-up comedian. I saw him as somebody who could be a guy who could create his own television show, write his own movie, star in dramatic things. And, when I see him in A Star Is Born, yeah, he's got a small role, but it's beautiful. No comedy, just a beautiful, beautiful supporting role. Wonderful. And I look at somebody like Gabriel Iglesias and his acting. People don't think he's they don't look at him as an actor. He's a great actor. Fucking great actor. And Ray Romano.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. He's become probably, it could be argued, out of all the stand-up comics working today, it could be argued that he is the best actor of all of them right now. And this is somebody who went onto a soundstage with Everybody Loves Raymond never even having any experience at all. So I always look at what the people that could use almost all the cylinders in their engine. They can create, they can star in, they can do guest appearances. I love that. Now, there's certain artists that I've represented that don't do all those things anymore, and I sometimes I don't get down about it, but I get kind of like, wow, this person's so talented, but they just seem to want to just take jobs that other people write now.
Yeah.
They just want to just book the jobs that other people write for them.
Right.
And so, but that's what I always look for. I look for charisma. I look for a comedian that has a strong engine. And when I say like a motor, like they get up in the morning, they're thinking about comedy. They go to bed at night, they're thinking about comedy. Comedians that always want to perform and always want to create and create different kinds of things and that are original. Now, I want to go one step further, because sometimes there's certain people that you work with and you realize maybe the chances of them doing certain things are not what other people are. Like, I'll give you an example. Like I represented Gary Gulman for probably 7 or 8 years. And, you watch Gary Gulman and it's like watching jazz.
Yeah.
But the difference between Gary Gulman and jazz is jazz musicians are very comfortable in their own skin. Jazz musicians are, they're flowing, they move, they whatever. And the way Gary's persona is and the way his winning formula is almost like an uncomfortability in his own skin, whether he would admit to that or not. He's closer to like Conan O'Brien's comfortability than he is, Chappelle's comfortability or Jim Jeffries or Chris Rock or. But when you watch a piece of comedy like The Abbreviation of the States on Conan,
yeah,
a part of you, as anybody watching, you're like, oh my God, this is insane. Like this guy just made a routine about the abbreviation of the states. There's no one in the history of the world that did this. Why? Who knows why? And then he takes the side. It's almost like a set that's going off the rails and coming back on. It's like he's talking about an omelet station and who does the omelet station and the contractor versus the contractor and the secretary and again, when you watch the set, it could be argued, is this the greatest set in the history of television? No. Is this the best response that anybody's ever gotten on No. But when you can do material that original, it doesn't matter if you're comfortable in your own skin or not. It doesn't matter if you're a guy who moves around and acts out the bits. It doesn't matter if you do the voices or not. When you do material like that, you're always going to win. There's nobody yes, somebody can get a standing ovation fucking a stool. Fantastic. Or like, hey, the Gilligan's Island was a great show. I don't understand why they couldn't fix a hole in a boat this big, but they could make a blender out of 2 bamboo poles. What part of the chicken does the McNugget come from? No, yeah, you can get a standing ovation with a Jack Nicholson impression. But if you're doing that kind of material, so I always also looked at the material. I always looked at like, Chappelle. I remember Chappelle, one of his first jokes that really blew me away. I loved, he'd just come to New York City and he spent the day in Washington Square Park, and he came and did a set at the club. I'll never forget this. And he says, I was just in Washington Square Park today, and I found out the history that back in the old days, they used to hang white people and black people on different trees. Can you imagine the protests back then? We want to be hung on the same trees as y'all. And I just thought to myself, holy shit, this guy's 18 years old. This is like insane. And so it's like, so when you're looking at those things, or with Jim Brewer, it wasn't so much with the ability to plant his feet. It was the character of who he was, this crazy guy. But then when I first saw him do the routine about how when you drink tequila and beer, and he did an impression of your stomach, how your stomach is keeping the bouncer of your body, and when different liquors come in, and he acted out every like drink, and I was just like, wow, this is incredible. And then I'll say one other thing about artists, what you look for. The one thing I'll say to everybody listening, whether you want to hear it or not, is that the comedy business doesn't give a fuck about you. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about how you feel about, oh, I bombed yesterday and they were watching and what do I do? Or, oh, this person who's headlining, they hate me. They told everybody I was a bad comic, or this comedy booker won't book me, or I auditioned for this and my friend got it. I brought my friend to the audition just for support and they booked the role. I can't believe it. I can't believe they got Saturday Night Live. I'm better than that person. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about how you're feeling. So also the other thing I look for is the person who understands that the business doesn't give a shit about your feelings. So just go through, it's fascinating. I mentioned the shark before. There's only one thing noticeable that a shark cannot do. The most powerful creature in the ocean, and there's one thing it just cannot do, and that's swim backwards.
Yeah.
And so I find that fascinating, because I think for artists listening, you just have to keep pile driving forward with the best that you can. And a lot of comedians will say, well, I did really good at the Funny Bone the other night. Yeah, really good doesn't cut it. Well, I had a great set. Well, really great set doesn't cut it. What cuts it is that you have the best set of the night 10 times in a row at your home club, to where the bartenders, the waitresses, the people there, the owner of the club, the bar back, the guy taking the garbage out, everybody in the audience who might have been walking in and out, the comedians that hate you, every single person says that you had the best set of the night. You do that 10 times in a row, as I like to say, get a helmet, because you are going someplace in the right direction. But if you're not doing that, then you got more work to do. And for me, I want to work with people who work hard, who self-generate, who use every cylinder, who have charisma, who can bang themselves over the head and give themselves amnesia every day. So every day starts at 0-0 and they just move forward. And that's what's going to take artists where they want to go. And you see comedians coming up and becoming more famous. Every year you see new people coming up and you're like, I can't believe she has a special. I started with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you didn't finish with her, so you got more work to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you phrased that beautifully about giving yourself amnesia every morning, because I've talked to, well over 100 comedians during the course of this show, and the one thing that is common among everybody is comedy starts out as just a series of shit sandwiches. You get shit sandwich after shit sandwich every day. People are passing you up that shouldn't be passing you up, but you have to understand that you got to eat those shit sandwiches, and you have to find out the way to make you special versus worrying about why somebody else is special.
Yeah, like put your jokes and your premises on paper. Really look at them. And really look at them. Like, you can write down any premise with the jokes that you have under that premise on it. And just hand them to a stranger and say, hey, listen, could you read this? Let me know what you think.
Mm.
And if they're reading it and they're like, then you got more work to do.
Yeah.
It's like I remember one of the first people who came on, who sent me a video. Well, not the first, but one that I really remembered. And I remember a joke that they did, and I honestly didn't remember it the way they told it. And in my mind, if they were here right now, I'd say that they told the joke differently and not as necessarily effectively as I remembered it, the way I would tell it to people, how I loved it.
Uh-huh.
But, it was like a woman who was talking about how she was in her 40s. And the way I perceived the joke was this. Now, I'm going to share the premise to the joke with you and your audience, because she's already documented the joke and whatever.
All right.
And think in your mind what joke you would write for this. So we already know she's in her 40s, and the premise is, you're getting old as a woman when. So think about what you would write for that joke. And this is what I think most comedians would be so beneficial to do. If they just take the joke, the premise they have, whatever premise they have, whatever it is, and think about if they gave that premise to 100 comedians and said, could you come up with one joke for that? Or could you come up with 3 for that? There would be a lot of jokes, and chances are maybe your joke wouldn't be the best.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one of theirs would be. So you can constantly reevaluate and relook and go back to your jokes. Now, if I stop the video of like that premise, you're getting old as a woman when, maybe my joke would be, you're getting old as a woman when your Spanx have an expiration date. Maybe that would be my joke or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I'd probably get canceled. But this woman's joke, just there's no way it cannot work. I just don't even understand how it's possible. You're getting old as a woman when you have to buy your own cocaine. So, like, And again, I know it's a drug reference and it's not, that's probably, maybe people would say that's an easier laugh. But she takes you on the ride, you're going, and then you just fall off the cliff. And then it's not only a consonant at the end, but it's a double consonant, cocaine.
Uh-huh.
And so when you're putting your material together, you want to have stuff that is automatic. Now, just if you're a storyteller, it's different. Let's use the analogy of boxing. If you're a storyteller, yeah, it's jab, 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 right, jab, 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 combination, jab, 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 uppercut. You're telling a story. You can't, no story is going to work when it's like uppercut, 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 uppercut.
Right.
But, but if you're a joke teller or telling jokes around a premise, let's look at just the old days. Rodney Dangerfield could tell a story and a joke in 4 or 5 seconds. Oh, I was ugly as a kid. My dad used to tie a pork chop around my neck to get the dog to play with me. Boom.
Yeah.
Oh, my wife is a bad cook. I don't think meatloaf should glow in the dark. Boom. Oh, my parents hated me. My bath toys were a radio and a fan. Boom. It's just like, that's different than a storyteller. Yeah. But most comedians are the ones that put a premise together and have jokes. I always say one of the greatest routines ever that I probably, again, can't talk about is an 8-minute piece of Chris Rock. It's about 25 years ago, Bring on the Pain. The one where he has one premise. I'm a black man. I love black people, but I hate.
Yeah. That's a great act. Yeah.
And when you watch that 8 minutes, it is insane. It is like a one-sided boxing match for 8 minutes. He's just pounding every single joke. They like to keep it real, real dumb. Boom. You're worried about your money in your house? Put it in books. Don't read. Boom. It's like kryptonite. Boom. And he acts it out. Or it's just like, I know a lot of black people out in the audience are looking at me, Chris Rock, and saying, hey, that's not true. It's the media. It's the media. When I go to the cash machine after the show, I'm not going to be looking over my shoulder for the media. I'm going to be looking over my shoulder for boom.
Yeah.
And then the tags. Ted Koppel never did anything to me.
Yeah.
Boom. I'm looking over my shoulder. Mike Wallace is not there. Boom. It's just like, if you watch that, it's just the one premise. Black people and something else. That's the whole premise. And there's so many things. Can't open a nightclub. Grand opening, grand closing.
Yeah.
Can't go to a movie. People are shooting at the screen. It's just one thing after another. It's like unbelievable. It's like it's sanity. And these are the examples that I would show anybody. And I love showing people because I could watch these routines over and over again because you want to. Another thing I could talk ad nauseum about is look at Jim Jeffries' gun control bit. This is like a 10-minute routine where he's going on stage. Probably half of the people in the crowd are against guns. Half the people are for guns. But yet somehow, some way, this guy, through this stream of consciousness, there's one premise. He's like crushing, and everybody's galvanized at the end.
Yeah.
Everybody listening to this show, everybody listening, everybody knows what great comedy is. You have an advantage that I never had. If I wanted to look at a great comic, I'd have to wait around every night to see who was on the Tonight Show and who knew if they were great or not. I remember seeing Louie Anderson for the first time, walks right out, crowds applauding, first line, "Hey, I don't have much time, I'm in between meals." Boom. Just crushed them. You know, it's like who he was as a person, his point of view, and every joke, even jokes that you probably couldn't do today. Like I did the fat person Olympics, broad jump, killed her.
Yeah.
You know, 3 seconds, boom, just crushed them. And you know, and it was about family and him and what, you know, Roseanne back then around the same time, you know, she took something that was a topic that was common, which is a housewife, and she called herself a domestic goddess.
Mm-hmm.
And then she broke it down of how things were in a way that no one else could break it down that way. Everybody listening, you know what's great. You know when you look. If he were sitting here, he'd probably kill me, but I've talked to him about it before. Dave Chappelle was gracious enough. I represented him for probably a little over 8 years, and he was gracious enough to invite me to one of his shows leading up to one of his specials. And he goes on stage, and it's like the day after Charlottesville or whatever it was, and he does like a half hour on Charlottesville, like, you know, just off the top of his head. He's killing. It's like the crowd is like davening like rabbis, you know, it's like in a prayer book. I mean, it's like killing, like insanity. Just there's no way he could have written it. It was the night before. Killing. And then you can tell he sort of finished the rant and he gets to the stool and he does a line that he did on one of his specials. He says something to the effect, "I'm 44 years old. I'm getting old." You know, you're getting old when you close the door as you get under the covers, you start jerking off, and halfway through you just say, "Fuck it, I'm going to bed."
Yeah.
Did that joke, and then he proceeded to do a half hour of like whatever it was, Sticks and Stones, or one of the specials that he was working on, which was insane. Go backstage. There's like 200 people waiting back there. I'm thinking to myself, I should just go. I'm never going to see him, whatever. Comes out. And it's so humbling sometimes, you know, because you have your kid there and and he just walks out and there's all these people waiting to see him. He just comes and he comes right over to us and he spends time with my boy. And I ask him right then and there, I say, "Listen, you know, Dave, I mean, you're Dave Chappelle. You know, I love this, what you did. Insane. So amazing. I just got to ask you about one joke. Why in the bridge between the Charlottesville and the other stuff did you sit at the stool and not sit at the stool, put your stuff on the stool, smoke a cigarette, and just say the joke about masturbation?" And he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, "Barry, man, sometimes I like to do things for me." You know, and it made sense to me because like he knew that that's not the kind of joke that is up to like the Crack Baby or or you know, the Jesse Schmoulet, as he would say, bit, or the, you know, some of the incredible pieces that he's had on these specials. But one thing you understand when you become an extraordinary artist is that, look, let's say you have 100, let's call them jokes. there's going to be one that's number one, and there's going to be one that's the 100th best. There's going to be one that's the 72nd best, the 36th. They can't all be tied for first.
Mm-hmm.
But the greatest artists in the world, they're writing their material with the vision that everything is tied for first. And that's the mindset of what they want to do, and that's what makes them great. They're not writing a routine saying, this would be the B-side to my 45 single.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're writing routines so everybody believes that they're at the top of their game. And that's the most important thing for you artists working on things. You start with your first 5 that's invincible. No one can stop you with that 5. There's not one joke that's not equal to the other, not one premise, however you work it. And then you start working on the next 5. And you can do it many different ways. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Some artists, I'm sure you go to the shows and you'll see them do 5, and then you go to another show and the person does another 5, and you're like, what the holy crap, they just did another 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some people who do their 3.5 minutes of their 5, and they insert the 1.5 new minutes in to kind of get a feel for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's no right or wrong answer. Obviously, the person who takes the risk and goes with a new 5 is the person that everyone in the room respects more.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that everyone in the world knows how the process worked for everybody. You don't know the process of Jim Jeffries.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know the process of Chris Rock. You don't know Seinfeld's process of how they work it. And nobody does when the special comes out. So whatever works for you and is going to get you to the promised land quicker, that's the thing you should do that works within you. I still say risk is always an exciting thing, but comics worry, well, what if the booker's there and he sees me bomb and I do a new 5? Well, you know what's great. You know what jokes you write that are great. Why do anything that's just okay? You can look at it on the paper. You can see you're a smart person.
Mm-hmm.
You can see what's funny and what's not. I mean, it's pretty clear, I think. I mean, if you wrote down every great comedian's best bit, if you wrote down the George Carlin bit where he talked about these people who are trying to save the environment, and when he says the world is going to flick you people off like a dog flicks off fleas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that looks good on paper.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the 7 words that, you can't say on television looks good on paper. I think the routine about football and war, I think it looks good on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And if it looks good on paper, if you're any semblance of a performer, it's going to look good on stage. And I think the last thing I'll say about that is that don't give up on something that's great because you're not a great performer yet. It's like you have to tell your stories or your jokes like you would remember telling the greatest story that you have to your friends at a birthday party. Mm-hmm. Everyone listening knows their best story that they tell when they're around strangers at a group. Mm-hmm. And it always kills, and they always tell it the right way, and they always have the right timing, and there's always that closing line, and boom. And so just get up on stage and be the person you are with your friends. Don't be like, I was watching somebody the other day who great new material. Amazing new material. And I know this person, and they're so wonderful and so, but on stage it was just like this. Mm-hmm. Great material, but just, not telling it like they would to their friends or anything like that. So those are the things I would say about that. But the great part is, again, you all know, I couldn't say this, I could say this 20 times. You all know you're smart you know what's funny, and you know what isn't funny. But Barry, somebody went on the other night who has a Netflix special, and they did a joke about how shit floats in the toilet. Okay, that's so they did that. Let them do that. It's a long race. I can guarantee you if they keep doing jokes like that, they're not going to get another Netflix special, and you're going to get that slot. There's no timetable. There's no rhyme or reason why some people make it earlier than others. Look, I've probably done 40-hour specials. I'm not going to say which ones, but there's some I've done that I'm like, I can't believe the material that person was doing.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't even believe it. It's like, what were they thinking? I have people that I did their hour special, and after they saw their hour special, they quit the business. And not because of the production of the special, but because of the material.
When you work with comedians, and this is something I see because I still go to a lot of open mics, and there are, I guess there can be a tone deafness as far as your comedy is concerned. You get so married to a bit that you think it's funny and you love it, and you keep doing it even though it's not landing. How do you, is objectivity something you can teach a comedian, or is that something they just have to figure out on their own?
That's a great question. Don't you love it when somebody says that's a great question? Isn't that the best?
Yeah. Yeah.
That?
I feel like I'm doing my job. Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest problems with comedians starting and working towards success is their lens. You know, like everybody has a different lens. Like, I have a shitty lens for myself. And I think sometimes I purposely do it to myself. Like, I'll purposely wake up. You know, it's like, I know God, I should be so grateful, and I get to live, at the beach and, in Malibu, and I get to enjoy a quieter, really. And sometimes most days I'll just wake up and I'll be like, if you don't get it together today, it's all over. You better think about packing out of here and moving up. Now, I've been here in this town for almost 20 years. And I'm not going anywhere unless I buy one of those conversion vans and live in a van down by the river. By the way, I was there when that sketch.
Oh, wow.
Farley was incredible. As Jay Moore would say, he was a wrecking ball of joy.
Yeah.
So the lens, like, my lens, when I say that, and when that comes out of my mouth, what I just said about where I live, it comes out of my mouth. The first thing that my mind tells me is, you shouldn't have said that. Shouldn't have said where you live. That's pretty shitty when you tell people where you live and you live at the thing, and people only need to know that. And then the other side of me when I wake up is like, I today, you better make it happen today, Barry, because if you don't make it happen, it's all going to go away and you're not going to have shit. And I don't recommend anybody think that way, but that's my lens. I force myself to believe that everything is going to fall apart if I don't get my shit together. And even though if my shit is together, I say it's not. Even though if I do something that I change somebody's life, and I say that again humbly too. I'm not saying that I'm the guy who, like God, who said, I changed your life. It takes somebody's talent and my talent, and together you know, you change things. But I have worked on things where, you know, again, it's not coming across with humility, and I don't know how to say it any other way, but like, as an artist, those that I'm speaking to, all of you, it's like the way I knew that I was doing something and I was going in the right direction as I started representing somebody. At the first, it was one of my first clients was Anthony Clark, and I start representing him, and an audition comes in, and he goes in for the audition, and he gets a call back, and then another call back, and these tests, and he gets the sitcom in LA for NBC. I'm like, wow, this guy was just doing my open mic night. This guy has never, like, the mostest money this guy's ever made is $100 for a show. And now he's getting $20,000 or $25,000 a show.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, okay, well, maybe that's just a fluke. And then Jay Moore auditions for his first sitcom with Jerry O'Connell and Hilary Swank.
Mm-hmm.
And he tests and he gets it. And he's flying out to LA. It's like, oh, that's just fluke. It's just whatever. Whatever. And then Louie, I submitted his VHS tape to Jerry Seinfeld because Jerry was touring in New England.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew he was looking for an opener. And I edited the tape together. Louie was 18, sent it. And Jerry called back with George Shapiro and said he can have all 10 shows. And then I'm like, okay, I guess, it's just three things that happen, whatever. and then you get your first person on SNL, and then you're like, oh, okay. And you get your second on SNL, then another person, books a huge job, and then all of a sudden somebody gets Montreal, and it's like, then they get a development deal for $150,000, and you're like, oh, that's cool. Then you get 6 development deals in 1 year, and you're like, wow. And before you know it, you look back and you see that over 25 artists that you worked with started in a studio apartment or in humble beginnings, and they're multimillionaires and they're household names. Then you say to yourself, okay, I guess something's happening here. Now, granted, something's happening for Will Ferrell. Something's happening for Tina Fey. Something's happening for Joe Rogan. And a million other people who I never represented. So there's somebody out there for everybody, and every artist has their own path and their own team that they'll work with. Sometimes they'll change teams. Mm-hmm. But for me, and to you artists listening, it's like, that's how you know that you're on the right track. It's the incremental successes. Even on this blueprint thing, like, I was on a group call, and there was a young woman who I know has like 3 jobs, but I think there's something really original about her, and I spend a lot of time with her trying to get her to look at the lens the right way and do the right kind of material that's going to get the laughs. And I went to, because it was an Ask Me Anything call, and everybody got a chance to ask me a question, and she said, I don't really have a question. I just want to let you know that I have 3 shows tonight. Wow. And I said, and it was like a Monday. And I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. And she was really nice about what we talked about. But essentially what she reiterated was, it's the incremental things. You're building your legend. Mm-hmm. So each one of you listening, you're building your legend one step at a time. And then you do really well on that open mic. And, what's weird is people come up to you and they say, hey, I got a show in Pomona, or I got a show in Valencia. Will you come to this? Hey, will you close my show that I have here? And then people start following your legend that you're building. And then bigger things start happening for you. And then comedians like grandmothers, if they find out you got a standing ovation on a show on a Wednesday, I can guarantee you that sometime in the next month, the Improv's going to call and say, you want to do a spot here on our Monday night show. And it's like the NFL playoffs, sadly. It's like oh, let's celebrate. We got the wild card.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to play the game. Oh, okay, we're playing the game. Hey, we won the wild card game. This is fantastic. Oh, we got to play next week for the division championship. Hey, we won the division championship. We got to play again for the conference championship. Okay. We won the conference. Oh, we got to play for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's like you're always, for those of you listening, honestly, I think it's true in your personal life and your professional life. Every time you're in front of anybody, pretend you're auditioning for the job. I mean, I say that personally because let me tell you something. How many relationships go sour when you're a person who goes and treats every date that you have with that person like it's your first date?
Mm-hmm.
How many people look at that person and say, what a fucking loser that person is. Jesus, I can't believe they wrote me a card again for the 10th time and they brought me a little gift. What a loser.
Yeah.
We go out with this other guy who has the futon and the guitar in the corner. And we'll do our date on Runyon Canyon on a park bench. Whatever. But in your professional life, it's the same thing. It's like you go on these gigs and you're auditioning for it's like you're going on like you're doing an audition for whatever you want to do an audition for.
Mm-hmm.
And taking risks is cool too. I just want to share this. Like, if you're a sketch performer listening, look, I've had people test many, many times. I represented Melissa Villasenor. She tested twice. She didn't get it. And then, 7 years later, she got it. I don't know why these things. I thought her tests were amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had other people test who shall remain nameless. I didn't think were anywhere near as good as her test, and they got it.
Oh.
So it just, but sometimes risks are fascinating to me. Like there's a girl who got Saturday Night Live this year. I'm sorry, I'm spacing on her name, but you can look how many women got the job this year and look up her test for SNL. And it's so unbelievably shocking and original, yet it starts off where you think, oh, this could be pretty ordinary here.
Mm-hmm.
She starts just doing like one-liners from the Mike Myers movie where he's like Austin Powers, like the evil whatever.
Yeah.
So she just keeps doing these lines over and over again as a different character. There's just a name on the screen as a different character saying the line. And it's like 20 of them in a row. And you're thinking, this is, it's interesting what she's doing, but I don't think this is going to get her the gig. And then just like out of nowhere, like she just breaks character and she's just like, you can tell she's holding a phone filming her and she's just like, stupid, god damn it. God, I fucked it up. And then she just keeps going, losing her way more and more to where she gets herself so frantic that she actually goes to the sink and throws up on her phone. And you can see the phone and her throwing up on the phone. And she's washing the phone. She's like, stupid, I ruined my fucking phone. And it was so shocking to me, the risk that she took. She just didn't do the ordinary, I'm going to do the characters. Like, that gets the job most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But she took a chance. She knew that they're not going to hire her just off that, but they might say, hey, why don't we bring her in and see what she can do, what character she's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And she came and she got the show. So yeah. I hope that helps people listening at all.
Yeah, I think you framed so many things that I've talked to so many people about so well. I'm going to use a lot of sound clips from this one. One of the things, do you still have a little bit of time?
I'm yours, brother.
Excellent.
I'm here until you grow hair.
All right. That's going to be a long, long night.
And just so your audience knows, I'm not shitting on him. He made the joke before we came on about his hair. So I just don't want you to think like I'm this asshole who's commenting on his hair.
So one of the things I do, and I wanted to bounce a couple of these off of you, is I pay attention to what comedians write on forums like Reddit and Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that, and the ones that create the most conversation. And one of them I wrote down was hobbyist comedians need to step down and give stage time to comedians who are serious about their career. And I paraphrase that because they weren't a very good writer, but there was a lot of talk about that. And I wanted to ask you, how many of the comedians that you ended up working with started out as hobbyist comedians?
I'm embarrassed to tell you that I don't even know. I don't think I know one person who, if you're talking about a hobbyist comedian, whereas somebody who just does it on a side hobby and that they don't care about it. I've never met anybody like that. I mean, are there a lot of people like that around?
Yeah, pleased to meet you. But I do care. I do care about it. But you know, and there are other people like me who just want to, you know, stay regional, do their thing, but they want to be good at their craft. And yet there are other people who they really want to lean full time into the business, and that's what they want to make their career. And I guess my statement is that there's room for us both. And some of us hobbyist comedians may even go on to do well. Why would you say that we don't deserve the stage time?
Look, if I'm running a comedy club, which I did run many in my time, I'm going to put on the people who are serious about the craft. I'm not going to put on somebody who's going to, but that's up to me. That's up to each individual club. You know, another club owner might be like, wow, this guy's great for his 5 minutes. He does The Wizard of Oz in 5 minutes. People love it. Now he's going to go back to his job at accounting. Okay, whatever. But no, I mean, if I'm running a club, I want the people on the stage who are serious about the craft and want to be extraordinary at it and want a career at it.
Very good. Very
That's
good.
For them.
Okay, here's the next one. Cancel culture has stifled comedy creativity and has watered down stand-up comedy. What do you feel about that one?
Well, I mean, I think it's factual. You know, it's like, look, I mean, this is what's crazy about it. I just want to share this. This is going to be a long-winded answer.
Okay.
But I'm going to give it to you, okay? So I believe, and I've been saying this for too long, and maybe no one listens. There needs to be a governing body in the entertainment business that, you know, this board of directors, whatever it is, like the Academy is for film or whatever, but for the entertainment business, You know, you're in the NFL, you somehow punch your wife outside of an elevator and drag her by her hair. It's like, oh, okay, you're going to come into the office here. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to do an investigation. Let's see. Okay. The guy before you, he got 8 games off without pay. He had to pay $250 to the charity, and that's your punishment. And then they come back in the NFL. Hey, Antonio Brown, what happened? You did that, and that. Okay. Well, that means you're going to be out for 10 games, $1 million fine, and then you can come back when you take care of that. Oh, you got to go to counseling. Okay, that's good. Okay. All right. See you later, Antonio. Meanwhile, like Louis C.K., one of the greatest comedians of our generation, pulls his pants down in a dressing room and does his business in front of 2 women who don't want him to do his business. And then he leaves. And the guy's selling his special on his website. Meanwhile, Michael Jackson's penis can be identified by 13-year-olds, and his songs play over all over the world, and there's shows about him in Vegas and Broadway. It's like, what's I'm not saying what somebody like Louis did is correct, or what Chris D'Elia did was correct, but I think there should be a thing where it's like, okay, the board of directors, Chris D'Elia, okay, there's a 2 years, you can't do any clubs and you can't do anything on television. You got to pay a $250,000 fine to this charity that helps young people avoid people like that. You got to do 12 weeks of counseling. And then after that, you can be hired anywhere and it's acceptable and everything. It's like Deshaun Jackson there's 22 women that said that he did things to them on a massage table. 22 women. And the guy takes a year off, and now he got a $230 million guaranteed contract. It's like, why isn't our business like that? Where, okay, Michael Richards, okay, you said the N-word in a comedy club. Okay. You're not allowed to go to any comedy clubs for a year. You've got to go to start a charity for people with sensitivity training, and you got to pay this fine. And then you come back. It's like, I don't understand why it's just Kevin Spacey. How can the greatest actor of my generation, or at least one of the top 10, the guy hasn't worked. The guy can't work.
Yeah.
It's like the guy, yeah, he did bad things, but let's set a punishment and then let the punishment end and let's move on. It's so in that sense, I think cancel culture has affected things. I remember, I think it was, I don't want to get this wrong. I had some people going to one of Jerry Seinfeld's shows, and I remember, I think I asked George Shapiro, I said, listen, can I get 2 tickets to the meet and greet? And he said, oh, Jerry's not doing the meet and greet anymore. Oh, why not? Well, you know how it is. You know, you touch somebody when you're taking a picture the wrong way, and they however, this is the good thing about cancel culture, if there is a good thing. It's that it forces a lot of comedians to do material that's forces their brain to do edgy, really, really smart material that is shocking, but doesn't hit those areas. But let's face it, it's like, is it fair that I love Don Rickles. I'm saying I love Don Rickles. I should be canceled for loving Don Rickles.
Yeah.
I mean, I just watched an old roast of his from 50 years ago. And it was LaWanda Page and Nipsey Russell and Leon Spinks and all African Americans. And he's just in the middle of a routine, and then he just looks over at LaWanda Page and says, "LaWanda, next Sunday, just the furniture." And then he just, keeps going. Yeah. And it's like, you would never. Now, granted, they're laughing incredibly hard, but you'd be canceled in a second. Yeah. Like everything, like he did an HBO special where the mic broke, comic relief, and the stage manager was African American, brought him a new mic, and he took the new mic, and the guy was walking away, and he rolled the mic on the stage and said, "Fetch." You'd be done. You'd be canceled in a second. So is it bad that I like Hackett, or I like Buddy Hackett, one of the greatest comedians ever, made $175,000 a week in 1951 in Vegas, but we're able to listen to Rickles on. You can listen to him anywhere you want, and that's okay. But we can't, as comedians, do it. Comedy is the one workplace. It's the one safe workplace where you can say anything you want and no one can fire you until now.
Yeah.
And so,
and a lot of, it's funny. A lot of what I know about comedy and comedians is they used to. So I did a live special with Tom Dreesen and some of his friends a couple years ago. And backstage, we're using this thing, and backstage before we started filming, they are just tearing into each other, and they're one of the guys that came on, can't think of his name, Marc. Anyway, he comes in, he pops in, and Tom says, "Oh, we got the Jews here, so we know what's going to happen now." And then he had a Catholic guy there, so there was a lot of religious stuff, and there was a lot of ethnic stuff being said, and they were all laughing and loving it. And comedians used to get together and they used to bust balls. And I'm in a city now where, if you're not super supportive and super nice to everybody, you are canceled by the group of comedians that you're in, because you're not allowed to be yourself. And I think that's kind of sad.
No, there's a lot of things that are sad.
Yeah.
But again, the business doesn't care what you think. So it doesn't matter. All that matters is that you take people's breath away. You blow people the fuck away.
Yeah.
They work. That's all that matters. If you do that.
Right.
Anybody listening to this call know any comedian in the world that goes on and gets standing ovations every night that isn't successful? Is there anybody we know? If you got a standing ovation in Guam in a bathroom, people would find you.
Yeah.
You're doing extraordinary material and you're working in Tanzania, people will find you. I just was watching a comedian set. I loved it. It was just watching the first two jokes. I think he was from South Africa. African guy from South Africa. Not light skin, dark skin. And the joke was, you can't, again, when I say this to your audience, you can't, what's great. So this was the premise. I think he gets a gig in the United States, and the next day there's a white woman cleaning his room. And he's like, "Oh my God, you don't understand where I come from. There's not, for a white person to be cleaning your room. It's like, it was unbelievable. I was throwing shit on the floor while she was cleaning." So that's the first joke. So the premise is a white person is cleaning my room for the first time, and I'm a black person. That's the premise. So the first joke is I'm throwing shit on the floor as she's cleaning. So you can visualize the garbage going on the floor with the and then the second joke comes. There's many jokes, but the second joke comes where he kind of imitates the maid, and the maid looked at me and says, how can you do that? Why are you doing this to me? And he looks at her and he says, I don't know how long this is going to last. You know, so just another uppercut.
Yeah.
You can read that on a piece of paper and you know that's funny.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You know, it's like you know it's funny. And comedy is like it's like the horror movie. If you see the knife on the kitchen table, you know the knife is going to be used later on.
Yeah.
If you watch the movie Saw till the very end, you're like, holy shit, I can't believe that was oh my God. And that's what you want from your comedy. You want that just like they can't believe you're going in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there's a comic, Marc Cohen, who I love, who I went to school with, high school with. And Marc is like a lovable hack, and he knows it.
Uh-huh.
And I still laugh at him.
Yeah, I love him. Yeah.
Even though I know where he's going, and everybody in the crowd knows where he's going with certain things. For instance, I saw him the other night, and just to let your audience know, this is like, even when you know where somebody's going, if they're a lovable, huggable guy, yeah, they may not make it to be superstars, but somehow they can still make you laugh and you acknowledge, okay, this guy's not really doing the right thing, but it's funny. Yeah. He does this thing where he says, oh, you guys are a nice crowd. The other night there was this drunk guy, he was heckling me, you know, I'm doing my act. He's like, hey, comedian, I fucked your mother. Sir, listen, could you sit down? I'm trying to do my act here for these people. I do another 5 minutes. He stands up, hey, comedian, I fucked your mother. Sir, please, I'm trying to do a great show here. 5 minutes later, hey, comedian, I fucked your mother. I'm like, Dad, will you sit down, please? And so, like, you know where it's going.
Yeah.
You still laugh, but you know that that's not going to get you where you want to go. You know, the joke I said before with the white maid and that's going to get you where you want to go.
Mm, yep. Yep. I dig that. I understand. So one of the things that's intrigued me since I've been studying you is this blueprint for success thing, because I'm looking at it and it looks like there's a lot of stuff there. Can you kind of break down what you're doing with that?
First of all, you have too much time on your hands. So I think you're going to have to lower your expectations somehow.
You got to clean up that lens.
You got to clean that lens. I got to clean the lens.
Clean the lens.
This is the thing about me that I think has always been challenging. Is I don't like just doing one thing. I want to try to do other things that I can make an impact on. Like I love managing, and there's something amazing about creating great opportunities for people. But I also like, producing television projects, that they work on or great artists work on, or films. Or sometimes I just like producing a film that, doesn't have anything to do with artists that I work with. Like I did a documentary, Misery Loves Comedy, that it was like Larry David and Judd Apatow and the late Bob Saget, and Kevin Pollak directed it, and it went to the Tribeca Film Festival. It was bought by Tribeca. It got a release, and and it has nothing to do with any other piece of business I'm doing, but I love because it was about comedy and it was about the story about comedy and how, and hopefully it was inspiring to people in the comedy business. And so, and then I did the podcast. I started that about, almost a decade ago. And I offer it, it's offered for free. I don't have any ads. I don't have any HelloFresh on there or anything like that. I even just got an email from Manscaped that they wanted to do something. I'm like, there's a joke there, but like,
Hey, you can get a free Manscaped kit. I got the whole thing. It was great.
Well, you're using it in the wrong place. I just want you to know that. But anyway, but I don't know if I want to do that. Like I love offering it for free. I've done interviews with Kevin Hart, the president of Netflix, Ted Sarandos. I've done great lawyers like John Moonves, who represents Ray Romano. I've done Caitlyn Jenner. I've done, Dr. Phil. I've done 25 network presidents. I've done film studio presidents. And it just the inspirational stories behind these people. And then I just realized I know that I'm offering something to these people that's important, but I don't get to interact with them.
Mm-hmm.
But during the pandemic, I thought, well, why don't I try to create something where there could be all these different tiers where I could create a bunch of content during the pandemic that I could just throw on there, that when somebody joined, they got a ton of stuff, and each tier got certain things. And the next tier got everything that the earlier tier got plus more things, and then the next tier got everything that everybody else had but more things. And so there's room for people to join for $10, and there's room for people to join for $250 who want to have like a one-on-one 30-minute call a month with me or something like that, where I can go over stuff. And there's all these group calls where I try to engage people to get asked their questions and answer their questions. There's one that breaks down the first comedy set of a certain artist. This month we did Pete Davidson. There's like a round table where I bring in a special guest. I've had everybody from Tommy Davidson to Julie Ashton, who's the casting director for not only The Internship, but also Mad TV, but also Bob's Burgers and Big Mouth animated shows. This month I have Victor Nelly, who's a director, executive producer, who's done The Office and Superstore and Wonder Years, and they get to sit down across from these people and ask them questions and hear how they made it. And I also do like an Ask Me Anything call where people can ask me anything they want. So, and I get to do it in my spare time to where it doesn't affect anything else I'm doing. I do most everything at night or on the weekends. And it's amazing the impact that it has on people, because for like a relatively little amount of money, they're getting the sort of stuff that I used to give, the advice that I used to give, and what I've given to people who I manage or when I'm producing a show or a film, and they're able to get it from me in this program, but also have a dialogue in between the people as well and interact with the people and talk about those kind of parts of the business. And what's the most fun is seeing a show that somebody will do. There was a show at the Comedy Store recently with one of the people I work with, and then they booked somebody from that program on their show. And
wow.
So there was another thing where somebody produced a television show that I helped them film. I helped them get it all together and put all the pieces together. And then, I also do consulting where you get to, there's people out there obviously who have more financial resources than others, but they want to shoot their hour special, but they want to know how to do it, and they want to save the most money, and they want the best people. Recently, I did a hour special for somebody I was working with, and And I had like the guy who, worked with George Carlin and the Rolling Stones producing. I had the director who did Whitney Cummings and Veer Das. I had the sound guy from Sticks and Stones, the lighting guy, I think, from Bill Burr's special, and and then the set designer who did so many different comedian specials I can't even count them. And I can help people put those things together who have like more financial resources and they want to produce their own things, but they don't know how to go about doing it. So I get to do a lot of different things, and it keeps me really excited about what I'm doing. But the thing that I'm most excited about through all those platforms, whether it be management or anything else, the greatest thing in the world is when you can be of service to people and you can make an impact on their life that helps change their life forever. It's just it's one of the greatest feelings in the world.
Do you think having a servant's heart like you do has gotten you where you are?
I don't know what it is. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I guess I can share that. A guy who created the first digital comedy club, Ben Glebe.
Yeah. Is it called Nowhere?
Yeah, Nowhere Comedy Club.
Yeah.
He was the host of Idiot Test on Netflix for 200 episodes.
Yeah.
And he called me and said he noticed this thing that I was doing with helping comedians, and he said that's so you, Barry. And I said, why do you say that? He said, Barry, you forget, when I was a freshman in college, I called you and I started a show at my college, and you helped me get in touch with great comedians who I booked on my show when I was 18 years old. And I used to call you late at night, and you're still doing the same thing late at night. So, putting your expertise together and helping people to do what they want to do, it makes them happy. So I thought that was kind of interesting because I sort of forgot about that at the time.
Yeah, it seems obvious to me that your desire to help others get where they want to go has been what's your biggest success story.
And I feel bad, Scott, and because but the reason why I'm doing this podcast with you, not just because I have a lot of respect for you, but if all the reasons were sitting here and I had to pick one that's the most important, it's just being able to reach out to people in the comedy community or starting and letting them know that it's going to happen. It will happen. It can happen. It does happen. I've seen it happen over 25 times when somebody had nothing and then went on to do great things. I've seen it. It doesn't matter. Just I've been there, and it happens over and over again, and it's going to happen again in 3 months, and it's going to happen again in 3 months, and there's going to be another person that you're going to see. It happens. And as in the immortal words of Rob Schneider in 8 Adam Sandler movies, you can do it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, one last thing. We've been talking for a long time, but I do want to ask you this. Okay, a comedian they don't suck. They've got some promise, but they got a lot of work to do. And you got 5 minutes to tell them what their next step should be. What would you tell a new comedian to do in order to accelerate their career?
All right, first thing to do is to wipe their mind clean of any negativity having to do with anybody or anything in the business. Start from 0. Like they're looking at their material from 0. I would transcribe all of your material into the premises and the punchlines. and look at it, really look at it and study it. And if you gave that to a bunch of different people on the street who you don't know, would they laugh at every single thing? And if they wouldn't, start writing jokes like you're a monologue writer for Colbert. You know, they write 100 monologue jokes. They get one joke on. They're like doing handstands and eating caviar in the office.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like all it takes is one. And so, and then you think about your winning formula when you're with groups of people, what you're like and how you talk to people, and take that to the stage. And then know that each audience is like you're surfing. It's like you're riding a different wave each time, and you just got to stay on the board. You got to ride the wave and stay on the board. Each level of laughter is going to be different. The timing is going to be different. Keep learning how to ride. You're going to get thrown off a few times. You're going to get hurt. But eventually you'll be doing the pipeline in Hawaii.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So I feel like we've done a little masterclass here. You've framed things that have been told to me by a lot of different people better than I've ever heard them. So I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the time you've taken with me.
No, I appreciate you, and I'm really happy that you're going to send me your used manscaping kit. I'm looking forward to that. If you could just wipe it off with some towelettes, that would be nice, and boil it in surgical steel, surgical tool water. That'd be great. And,
yeah, you know, I'll just blow on it and put it in a bag. It'll be all right.
Fantastic. And, but yeah, listen, I've enjoyed it tremendously, and like if anybody needs to get a hold of me or anytime, you can just go on the website and do that. And again, I'm grateful for the time. I want people to win, and hopefully that will happen from this. And you're a good guy, and hopefully you're not a hobbyist at podcasting.
No, yeah, that's one thing I'm not a hobbyist at. But I tell you what, this blueprint for success is looking kind of good for me. It looks like something that I'm gonna pick a level, and maybe you'll see me on one of these Zoom chats.
You'll be surprised. Like, it's really, I think the one thing again that, and not to take more time, again, as an artist or as a comedian or anything, you kind of know if you're doing something right, because you know people don't seem to leave, they don't seem to want to go, you know, and it's constantly a challenge thinking to myself, okay, how do I keep them, how do I make them, what more information can I give them, what can I do to add more value. And that's the last thing I want to say on this podcast. If there's one thing, I don't care if you're listening and you're a guy who builds houses, works at Chipotle, or in an office, or as a comedian, you have to add value. If you don't add value, you're not going to get anywhere. You go to the comedy club, that owner of that comedy club doesn't see people laughing and drinking and eating more, then you're not coming back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to add value to where you get asked to open up for somebody on the road. You sure as hell better be writing them a thank you note and getting them a little gift and telling them how grateful you are, and killing, but not killing so hard that they're having a hard time following you. Yeah. Add value everywhere you go. People will follow you, they'll embrace you, and your star will always rise.
Wow. That's great. That's great. That's a good one to end on. Thank you so much, Barry. This has been great, and I tell you, I'm going to listen back just so I know that I caught everything that was great nuggets of wisdom. But this was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm excited to know I might be the first person to have 2 episodes, a part 1 and a part 2.
Yeah.